The kids are not all right, but they are gonna be. What's good, y'all? She gets this Erica Vane coming to you right here on Erica Vane TV with another Bel Air video. And in this one, we are unpacking and breaking down season 3, episode number 9. If you're new here, you know what? I'm actually going to stop saying that. I want you to subscribe if you identify with the conversations that I have and the content that I create. If you feel called to commit to constructive community and conversations. But my channel, my commentary is not for everybody. So I think I'm going to stop proclaiming so heavily that I want everyone to subscribe, because I don't. I quite literally do not. I want people who are ready to unlearn, unpack, and heal through various traumas, toxicities, problematic mindsets, and the like that come up so effortlessly, brilliantly within this series to be here. And I want everyone who's still fighting certain demons, and honestly, those who are not necessarily to the point of fighting demons, but they're actually fighting blessings and fighting lessons, to go ahead and skip this one, because babes, this one might not be for you. I use personal anecdote, lived experience, and anything else I can grab to help contextualize a lot of the media that we consume in some of my favorite television series right here on Erica Vane TV. And if you can get with that, then great. This episode I did not love. However, I am beyond grateful for it. And it's not that I didn't love it because it was not a great episode, because it derailed the season. None of that is true. I didn't love it because I didn't like how uncomfortable it made me. Let me explain. I was so ready at the start of this episode to write so many characters off. I'm done with them. And over the course of this episode, I was forced to sit with the desire to discard versus the beauty and the power that can come from pushing through and pulling up. And it really makes me think, after finishing the episode, of like, okay, where are you at positioning wise and being able to appropriately audit what you have the capacity for, what you're willing to push through, what you're willing to push up, and when it's time to walk away. And I do feel like we're living in a day and age where a lot of us are a little bit more willing to walk away a lot easier. First and foremost, Carlton. The way that he lashed out at Will at the start of this episode, which I knew it was coming. I knew this is how he saw it, but like him actually saying the dialogue pissed me off so bad, because while there is something to the underlying points of it in reference to Will being selfish, Will is not to blame for Amira almost killing herself. Will is not to blame for Amira feeling triggered. Will is not to blame for any of that. And for Carlton to sit all of that weight, all of that burden at Will's footsteps or door so easily, it pissed me off. It made me feel like they have gotten nowhere. It made me feel like I was stupid for hoping that they had actually grown and progressed and have found a brotherhood, a kinship, a cousinhood that would persevere through time. Like, I was immediately taken back to the Carlton that we seen when Will first arrived, a jealous, narcissistic, addictive, vindictive Carlton. And it really made me resent all of the moments I spent this season being proud of him. I was just so quickly disappointed. And honestly, I think that is to the series' brilliance, this particular episode's brilliance, because while I didn't love the episode, it still was put together masterfully. The conversations around redemption, whether outright and overt, like what we get to see in reference to the closure or the getting closer to closure conversation with with Hilary and Jazz, or the things that are just the undertones and how the characters progress, like with Will and Carlton, with Will and Lisa, with Uncle Phil and Geoffrey and how they relate to their boys. Like, it's just so many levels in which this conversation around redemption, around growth, around evolution, and it's happening. And it's like, you don't ever get to this point if you give up. So you can't give up neither on yourself or the people that you love. And that part is something that even post watching it, I'm still sitting with it, because it's just like, well, how long do you get on this roller coaster and stay on this roller coaster? And I get it, you push through, and sometimes there's powerful pivots that come from it, but I can't imagine like getting into season 4, into season 5, and Carlton still having these outbursts and being able to immediately drop back into such a disrespectful nature to Will that completely erases all of Will's growth. That would piss me off, and it would make me feel like, again, throw the whole Carlton away. But again, I think this speaks to the brilliance of this particular series in evoking this particular thought in me. I would love to know how y'all feel and what was going on for y'all. I will actually be going live very soon if I haven't already, to discuss this live with y'all. But that's kind of where I am with that. Now, going on to talk about Will, while it sucks that Will participated with Jazz in the destruction and defacing of the construction equipment, which turned too far when Terrell decided to burn the whole damn trailer down. I understood why Will did it, and I love the way that they communicated his reasonings further to both Uncle Phil and Vivian in this episode. I think aside from really cementing and confirming Will's growth and that he is not the kid that he was when he arrived there a year ago, and I thought that was just so beautiful, having him own up to his part in it, do what needs to be done, and not look to pass any of the blame, but ultimately liberate Jazz from a thing that he ultimately has part in too. But Uncle Phil being the one to confirm, like, you're not the same person. Even if you were making similar decisions, you did this based off of all of this full context. And for me, I feel like that spoke to Uncle Phil's growth as a man. This is probably the most proud I have been of Uncle Phil in the whole course of the 3 seasons that this series has been running, because he could have taken a point of like just allowing Will to accept such shame and guilt around this, and to reduce himself back to who he was and completely trivialize all of his growth. But in adding the context and adding the perspective and the understanding that Will has watched him make certain decisions and compromise in a way that doesn't align with the man that he is ultimately trying to help Will grow into being, that's dope that he could take that accountability in that way. And honestly, I don't know if I believe that Phil had this in him, but to see it is definitely refreshing and exciting. And it was brought on by, I think, a conversation with Geoffrey that we get to see him have, where he's able to relate to Geoffrey, because Geoffrey's also struggling with his son and him out in the streets doing what he's doing, so much so that he gets beat up, only for us to find out at the end of the episode that his beat down doesn't come from him robbing people and owing people money and in the craps games in the alley. Which, sir, who is still doing that? Frederick, please. But it's tied to people wanting to still sit down and that $1 million and not buy him out of the life. And ultimately Penelope starts to foster or facilitates a conversation, and Geoffrey's too keen on it, and he catches it, and he's like, do you trust me? The question is, do you trust her? Because the way that she was willing to walk your ass into a sit down with these people because it's better for her that you have to deal with them versus her son. And the same way that her son said if he had to pick between her and you, he's going to pick her. Send both of their asses back across the pond, because they're more trouble than what they're worth. And I just said all this whole thing about not discarding people, but I don't trust his London family as far as I can throw them, and I can't throw them at all. Damn near can't even pick them up. I love the idea of Geoffrey having family of his own, being able to cultivate that, but subtly, both Frederick and Penelope continue to throw up red flag after red flag after red flag. And it tells me that regardless of what is going on, they are going to save themselves before they will save Geoffrey, and they don't have a problem with sacrificing him. And maybe I'm just reading a little bit too much into it. I would love to discuss, if you see it differently, like what are the positives and the things that you enjoy about Penelope and Frederick being in Geoffrey's life. But I just feel angst when I see scenes of this, I can't even fully fall into the vibes and the love that they kind of give us as we get to see their chemistry being reconnected, because before we're able to really sit in it, there's some shit. Anyway, we don't really get a ton of reference to Aunt Viv and Uncle Phil and their relationships, but I love how they are both operating separately as people and operating within growth. Aunt Viv is really trying to be accountable for not being too easy on Will or the kids as a whole, so she makes him call his damn mama and tell, and holds Will's feet to the damn fire, but she's also able to still be nurturing to Carlton while wanting to check in and be honest and open and transparent. I think that she's found a beautiful balance between showing up and supporting the best way that she knows how, and also not turning a blind eye so that certain things can spiral out of control and get worse before they get better. And again, Uncle Phil brilliance in being accountable for his part in creating the situation that is Will making a terrible choice as it pertains to the whole construction project. Now, I want to go over to Hilary and Jazz, because when they said one night, I said, y'all are not about to bump uglies up in here and you are engaged. But no, they would not give me something so trite. Shout out to the BELAIR writers. Because a night to talk about each of yours part in the demise of your relationship, to talk about what you have learned about yourself as a result of y'all's interaction, y'all's friendship, y'all's romantic relationship, and then the destruction of that, to unpack where you are currently, what you need, what you still struggle with, and be able to get to a place where you realize that y'all are not actually right for each other right now, but still be able to clock that, oh, for Hilary, this Yolanda thing could actually be something. And for Jazz, like, oh yeah, you getting married, and she could speak to that she actually loves him and that it's not hard, which is a big issue for y'all. I say yes, inject this into my veins. Why aren't more people doing this? Like, I get, like, I have this conversation with some of my best friends all the time about closure, and a lot of them think that closure isn't real, but I feel like these are the type of conversations that closure look like. And while we didn't get the finite, like, we could never be together, we would never work, I think the ease and the breath and the space and the freedom that was generated created a closure for what I would say was their previous relationship, and all of the angst and the nervousness, the unmet expectations, the ego that came with it. And moving forward, if Jazz and Hilary are going to have something, that is going to be the beginning of something very new, with very clear understanding, with very clear context, with very clear expectations, and they will be in a better place because of this conversation. So that's why I would say that this was a closure conversation of sorts, and to me, a very mature one. While yes, I would imagine your fiance wouldn't want you spending the night with your ex, kiki and smoking weed, eating ice cream and having a good old time, but they didn't bump uglies, they didn't kiss one another, and they said a lot of things that needed to be said. And I just thought it was so beautiful, so beautiful.